Yeah, hello. Okay, so now we look at the intertemporal choice and then the budget constraint. So before this, we saw the consumption puzzle. That when we use cross-sectional data and then short-run time series, we are able to agree to the conjectures of Keynes. But when we use long-run time series data, then that one is at odds with what Keynes said. So we are trying to use these theories to solve the this consumption puzzle. Okay, this consumption puzzle. So but as I said earlier, before we look at these theories, we have to look at the intertemporal budget constraints propounded by Evan Fisher. Okay, so we need to look at that one first. But even before that one, too, you see that the intertemporal budget constraint is linking the future and the present. So we have to deal with the present value and then the future value of variables. We need to know how to discount future consumption and future income to the present time. Okay, so we have to look at the present value. Now, if you have 1 cedi today, okay, it's worth more than 1 cedi tomorrow. Why? Because it's possible you prefer current consumption to future consumption. But basically, the reason is that there is inflation. So the amount of money that your 1 cedi, the amount of goods and services that your 1 cedi can buy today, you wouldn't be able to buy those goods and services tomorrow. Which means that if you have 1 cedi in the future, it is worth less than 1 cedi today. Let me take it from this side too. If you have 1 cedi today, you can save this 1 cedi and earn some interest on it. So by the time you get to tomorrow or you get to the next period, you should have more than 1 cedi. Okay, so the 1 cedi that you had today was better than just having 1 cedi tomorrow. So now it means that there's going to be a trade-off between your consumption today and your consumption in the next period. Okay, you have to decide, are you going for higher consumption today and consume less tomorrow, or you want to consume more less today and then consume tomorrow? But before that, we have to know how to discount the future values to the present value. So these are some of the reasons why people will prefer like 1 cedi today or whatever resource that you have today is worth more than having that same resource in the future. Okay, the reason is that most individuals prefer present consumption to the future consumption. If I consume today, I prefer it to consuming tomorrow. I don't even know what is going to happen tomorrow. You see that black mentality. We consume today. If we sleep and we die, we die. So we prefer consuming today than consuming tomorrow. So that is how the human nature is. So why do we at times want to do that? Because of inflation. If we don't take our time, you see that it's very hard. It's very hard for a country to experience deflation. Even disinflation is not easy. Okay, so most of the times countries go through periods of persistent increase in price. So it's better the money that you have today, you consume it. But by the time you get to the next period, its value might have reduced. Okay, so inflation too is part. And because of uncertainty, we don't know how our resources are going to change in the future. So then it's better I consume today. If I get there and things are uncertain there, I don't care. I've already enjoyed whatever I wanted to enjoy. So these are some of the reasons why a cedi in the future is worth less than a cedi today. So how are we able to bring the future values into the present time? Okay, we use the discounting rate. Okay, and this discounting rate shows the trade-off between future and then present values. So if you have a value today, okay, per the discount rate, you are able to get more in the future. And then if you have a value in the future, because of the discount rate, when it comes to the present time, it reduces. For factors affecting the discount rate, you can Google it and see, but monetary policy can affect this, the credit system of the country can affect the fiscal policies and all those things. So in your free time, you can just look out for some of these things. Now, let's represent present value by PV. Okay, so just assuming we are talking about some cash over a given period of time. Okay, then if you want to discount all these variables in the future to the present time, you need to use your discount rate, and the formula is the future value divided by 1, then you add the discount rate to the power the time period in question. Okay, basically this is it. The present, we did this in applied maths. The future value divided by 1, then you add your discounting rate to the power t. Okay, so in the current period, we take t to be 0. So if t is 0, any number to the power 0 is 1. So we'll just be left with the value that we have. So that's why we have C0 here. So this is the cash at time t0. Okay, but if we go to the next period, if t is equal to 1, then the value there will be discounted by raising this to the power 1. So this to the power 1 is the same value. If we go to the second year, now t is equal to 2. So this is how we discount it the second year. Up to, if we have n number of years, then this is how we discount the n number. So after doing this discounting, you are able to find the present value of all the future cash flows. Okay, so you are able to bring the future value into the present so that you'll be able to make comparisons. Okay, so this is how we discount it. In likewise manner, if you want to send a present value to the future, okay, just assuming that PV is equal to FV over this. Now, if we want to send this present value to the future, it means that we are just making the future value the subject here. So future value should be equal to the present value times 1 plus the R. Okay, so this is what we are saying, that if you have a money, if you have like 1 cedi today, it's worth more than 1 cedi in the future, because when you save this your 1 cedi, if you save this your 1 cedi, you are able to earn this interest on this 1 cedi by the time you enter into the future. But if you have 1 cedi in the future and you bring it to the present time, it will be less than 1 cedi. Okay, you are going to get something which is less than 1 cedi. So the 1 cedi that you have in the future, if you bring it to the present time, it is worth less than the 1 cedi that you have in the present time. Okay, so this is the discounting that we will be using. So, and now that we have a fair idea about how to discount, this is the future value to, if you want to send a present value to the future, this is what you do. Now, let's look at the intertemporal choice. Okay, the intertemporal budget constraint. Now, for this theory, the assumption is that when people are deciding on how much to consume and automatically deciding on how much to save, they consider both the present and the future. Okay, you have to be forward looking. You have to be forward looking and rational. So it's not like whatever money I have, I'm consuming everything today. If I sleep and I die, I die. No. Okay, so this choice, this intertemporal choice that you are making, is a choice that involves both the present and then the future. So it involves different periods of time, unlike the normal budget constraint that we know, which is just for the current period. Okay, so here, one, we assume that the consumers are rational. You want to maximize your utility, and also you have to be forward looking. So you think about the future. It's not just about the current period. Okay, so now if you want to maximize your satisfaction, then that satisfaction or utility that you want to maximize will depend on both the current consumption and then the future consumption. You are interested in maximizing your lifetime utility, okay? From the day you started consuming to the day that you stop, that's the day that you die. So you try to make sure that all the consumption decisions that you are taking will maximize this lifetime satisfaction, okay? So what this means is that there is a trade-off between current and then the future consumption. If you want to consume more today, it means you have to consume less tomorrow. And then if you want to consume less today, then you are thinking of consuming more in the future. Okay, so that is the trade-off between current and then the future consumption because of the intertemporal choice that you want to make. So because of the intertemporal choice that you want to make. All right, so now if you want to make a decision as to what consumption level that you need to consume, then one, you have to also consider your future income, the income that you are expecting to receive in the future, and also the prices of the goods and then services in the current period and then in the future period too. So your consumption level, where the current consumption now will be based on one, your current income, your future income, and then two, the amount of goods and services that you can afford today and what you can afford tomorrow. And the affordability depends on the prices of the goods that you want to consume. So it's not a one-time issue at all. You are doing, you are making a decision based on what you can afford today and then what you can afford tomorrow. So as I said, when you are deciding on how much to consume today versus how much you want to save for the future, then the budget constraint that you are faced with is what we call the intertemporal budget constraint. I stated earlier that this budget constraint measures the total resources that are available to the consumer for consumption today and also in the future. Okay, so when you are consuming today, you are considering what you can afford today and your income today, what you can afford tomorrow, and your income tomorrow. So from the intertemporal choice, these are some of the things that we can see. One, we talk about the budget constraint that is faced by the consumer. And we are now talking about the intertemporal budget constraint. You are faced with the current decisions and then the future. And also, is this theory is able to talk about the preference that the consumer has between the current and then future consumption. Okay, we'll be able to see if the person prefers consuming in the current period to consuming in the future period, or vice versa. And then when we combine these two, then we are able to get the optimal consumption level and the optimal savings level over the consumer's entire life period. Okay, so now we know the preferences that the person is having, the budget constraint that the person is facing. So if we are able to combine the two, then we'll be able to know the levels of consumption for the current and then the future period that the consumer can go for, that to maximize his lifetime satisfaction. Okay, his lifetime satisfaction. But here, if we are saying that you can consume more or less in the current period or more or less in the future period, then it means that it's possible you can borrow today or you can borrow in the future. Okay, now if you want to consume more today, then it means that you are consuming more than your income, what you have today, but you are expecting that in the future you get more money so that you use that money to pay for whatever consumption that you spent over income. So you are able to borrow. But later on, we'll bring a borrowing constraint and then we'll see what will happen to this consumer. If we don't allow the consumer to borrow, what can this consumer do? Okay, you are only able to consume more than your income because you are able to what? To borrow. So what if we say that you cannot borrow any longer? What is going to happen to the intertemporal choice. So later on, we will look at that constraint too. We'll look at the constraint too. All right, so this is what I said earlier. Your choices, the consumer's choices under this model depends on the intertemporal budget constraint, which measures the total resources available for both the present and then future consumption for this consumer. Okay. So this constraint will tell us the decision that this consumer is going for. I mean, regarding how much to consume today, how much to save today, so that you can use it to consume in the future. Okay, that you can use to consume in the future. Please, if you have a question, you let me know. Okay. We are now coming to look at the mathematical representation of the theorem. All right, so for easy analysis, we just assume that this person is living for only 2 periods. Okay, the firm is living for only 2 periods. So the period 1 is the person's youthful age, that is today. And then period 2 will be the person's old age, so in the future. Then we assume that consumption for the current period is C today. And the income for the current period is Y today. Okay, so if you see Y today, we are talking about current income. Then Y future is the income the person expects in the future, and C future is the consumption he expects to spend in the future. Okay. Now, because the firm can borrow, you can either borrow or save in your youthful age, and as a result, it is not compulsory that your income will be exactly the same as your consumption level. You see, what I mean is that if your income is the same as your consumption level, then it means that you are not saving, you are not borrowing. In the case where income is more than consumption, it means you are doing what? When income is more than consumption, what does it mean?
You are saving more.
Yes, it means that you are saving. When your income is more than your consumption, it means you are saving. On the other hand, when consumption is more than income, it means you are what? You are borrowing. Okay, it means that you are borrowing. So because the person can save and borrow in any of these 2 periods, it's not compulsory that income should be equal to consumption in any of the 2 periods. So in the current period, consumption can be more than income. In the next period, too, consumption can be more than income, or vice versa. Okay, or vice versa. But the consumption in both periods is constrained by your income in the 2 periods. Okay, when you add your consumption today to your consumption tomorrow, it shouldn't be more than the sum of your income today and your income tomorrow. You are living for just 2 periods, which means that before you die, you don't leave any inheritance, and you don't leave any debt behind, which means that if you add your current consumption to your future consumption, it should be exactly the same as when you add your current income to your future income. I hope we understand that. Hello?
Please, can you go over the inheritance part when you were saying
like what I'm saying is that one, the person is living for only 2 periods. Okay, you are living for just 2 periods, and by the time you die, you don't leave any wealth behind. Okay, so if you are not leaving any wealth behind, and you are not supposed to leave any debt for the other generation to come and pay, which means that you consume your entire income, the income that you had throughout your life. You understand? And your life is divided into 2 periods, the current period and then the future period. So if you add your current consumption to your future consumption, it should be the same as when you add your current income to your future income. So you are consuming all your income in the 2 periods. So the consumptions cannot be more than the income, and then your income cannot also be more than your consumption. You see, the difference between what I'm saying and what you see here is that this one, we are talking about the current or the specific period's consumption and income. If you are in the first period, your income doesn't necessarily have to be the same as your consumption. No, it shouldn't. You can either save or borrow. When you get to the future too, the same thing, your income shouldn't be the same as your consumption. But at the end of your life, that is at the end of the second period, you should make sure that all the consumption that you consume throughout your life shouldn't exceed all the income that you received. Or all the income that you received, you shouldn't exceed all the consumption that you made, which means that you are not leaving any money, you are not leaving any debt too. Please, is that okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so whatever consumption you want to consume in both periods depends on the income that you will receive throughout the two periods. Now, the consumer is faced with a utility, and what he wants to do is that whatever consumption that he makes in the current period, that's today, and then in the future, in the next period, should be able to maximize his utility. The individual is just there to maximize his lifetime utility. And how do this individual get utility? He gets it through consumption in both periods. Okay, so if you are consuming C, okay, your consumption level at a particular period is C, then your utility derived from that consumption C will be UC units. Okay, so you consume C and then you derive utility of UC. Is that okay? You derive a utility of UC. Now, the UC is a positive function of consumption. As you increase your consumption, your total utility will increase. But we have the diminishing marginal utility, which means that the additional satisfaction that you get from consuming an additional unit of those goods and services will diminish, okay, as you consume more. So the first order derivative of the utility function must be greater than 0, which means that if you consume more, there will be an increase in your utility. The second order is less than 0, which means that when you keep on consuming it, the additional satisfaction that you get will diminish. I'm sure we all have a fair idea what diminishing marginal utility is. So that is what this is representing. Okay. All right. So now, if you want to find your total utility over the two periods, over the entire life of this individual, we just sum the utilities of the two periods. So if you consume C1 in the current period, you get a utility of UC1. In the second period, if you consume C2, you get a utility of UC2. So just add the two to get your lifetime total utility. Okay, your lifetime total utility. So this is the total utility is equal to the utility that you get from consumption today. Then beta times the utility that you derive from consuming in the future. This beta here is measuring how important you see future consumption, the weight that you put on future consumption. Do you prefer future consumption to current consumption, or you prefer current consumption to future consumption? So in the case where B is equal to 1, if B is equal to 1, then it means that the person is indifferent between current consumption and future consumption. Okay, if B is exactly 1, it means that you value today's consumption and tomorrow's consumption at the same level. Okay, but if B is greater than 1, if B is greater than 1, it means that you prefer future consumption to today's consumption. Okay, and if B is less than 1, it means that you prefer today's consumption to the future consumption. Please, I hope we understand this concept. Please, do you understand?
Yes, please.
All right. So this is how you get your total utility. Okay, that's how you get your total utility. Now, just for easy analysis, we'll forget about discounting the future stuffs into the current period. So we assume that the person is is treating both utilities equally. The utility that you get from the current consumption should be the same as that of the future consumption. That is why we didn't discount the future utility. Okay. So now, you are an individual. Okay. Your consumption in the current period should be equal to your income minus what you want to save. Okay. So consumption today should be equal to your income today minus your savings today. Okay, minus your savings today. Now, let's look at your consumption in the future. Your consumption in the future will depend on your income in the future. Then we add the savings that you saved when you were in the first period, and then the interest payment that you are getting on that savings. I'm taking it again. Consumption in the first period depends on income in the first period minus your savings. Okay, so you are not consuming all your income today. You've saved part, which means that when you get to the second period, the consumption there will depend on the income that you have there and the savings and the benefit of the savings that you saved from the first period. Okay, so in the second period, you can consume your income, and then maybe you save some 1 cedi here, and the interest rate was 20%. So when you get to the future, you get your 1 cedi and you get the interest of 20%, which is 20 pesos. So you come and get 1 cedi, 20 pesos here. So you can now consume the income that you get in the future, and also the 1 cedi, 20 pesos that you are getting from your savings in the current period. Okay, so this is your future consumption. Now, this is S, right? This is savings. From the first period, savings will be equal to income minus consumption. If you make savings here, the subject, savings will be equal to Y today minus C today. So we can substitute this S for Y minus C. Please, are we following? All right, so let's look at what is going to happen there. Now, we are using 1 for the future and 0 for today. So now, if you see C1, we are talking about the consumption in the future. If you see C0, we are talking about consumption in the current period. So your consumption in the future would be dependent on your income in the future, then the benefit that you get from your savings. And the savings is the current income minus the current consumption. Okay, consumption in the future will be equal to your future income, then you add the savings and the benefit that you get from your savings. So now we can expand that. Please, let's do it together. From here, we have C1 equals Y1. Then this will be 1 plus R times Y0, then minus 1 plus R times C0. Okay, we've expanded this, right? So we can bring this one here. We can bring this C0 here. So we'll have C1 plus 1 plus R C0 is equal to Y1 plus 1 plus R Y0. Okay, so now if we want to discount them, we'll divide through by the discounting factor. When you divide through by the discounting factor, it means that you are bringing the future values to the present time. Okay, so the future consumption, which is C1 in the present time, will be C1 over 1 plus the discount rate. And then income in the future brought to the current time will be Y1 over 1 plus R. Okay, so that is what they did here. That is what they did here. So when you do that, it means that this is your future, your discounted or the present value of your future consumption. Okay, we've brought the future consumption into the current period, and we've brought the future income into the current period. Okay, the future income into the current period. So what this means is that when you find the present value of your lifetime consumption, it should be the same as the present value of your lifetime income. Okay, if you add for this C0 will be C0 without any discounting factor because it's in the current period, it's in the present period. Y02, the same thing, but we have to discount the future value, that's future consumption and future income. So this is what I was trying to say, that when you add all these streams of consumption, it should be the same as the stream of what income. So you cannot consume in your lifetime, you cannot consume more than the income that you get. And then in your lifetime, you cannot consume less than the income that you get. So you don't leave any debt, you don't leave any inheritance to, you consume everything that you earn. So this is the intertemporal budget constraint. Okay, the intertemporal budget constraint. So if you see this, I'm sure you can see the difference between this one and the normal budget constraint that we know. Okay, so this one you are consuming today, but you are considering your income tomorrow and the consumption that you have to consume tomorrow because you are being forward looking. Okay? You are being forward looking. So we've been able to derive the intertemporal budget constraints. Please, any question? Any question?
No, please.
Are we all fine? All right, so this is the interpretation of the intertemporal budget constraints. Okay, you can either borrow or save in each period, okay, based on the discounting rate that you'll be given. So if you are saving in the current period, then you know that you are going to enjoy the future, you consume more in the future. But if you are borrowing now, you know that in the future you have to pay for the money that you borrow. Okay. So based on the intertemporal budget constraint, the individual's present discounted value of lifetime consumption, that is this part, okay, this part should be exactly equal to the present discounted value of lifetime income, which is this part, okay, which is this part. This part. I hope you understand. Okay. I want us to end here. Okay. Next week we will deal with the permanent income and then the life cycle hypothesis. So please, any question? I'll give you a reading assignment that you have to read. So now the micro one is there, and I hope you've started reading.
Please, can you go over the